Hey guys, welcome to a new movie review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Oscar-nominated film Spotlight. Spotlight is a film that it focuses on a real true story about these journalists who work for the Boston Globe. And one day, when they're trying to go over stories that they can go over to, fill the papers with, and a story that they can hopefully, take on in more than just one paper, a story that they can keep covering in several more papers, because that's how the Boston Globe seems to work their stories. They dig deep into this case that involves the Catholic Church and how it's connected to all these child molestation cases that are in and around the Boston area. And so the more they dig, the deeper they dig into this story, and the more they research it and interview victims of it, they find out that there's more to this case than just these kids got molested. That the church is hiding all these things that these priests were doing behind their backs, and there's the more they dig into this case, the more they realize that it's more than just child molestation and the church hiding it from them. So overall, guys, I like Spotlight. I don't think it's a magnificent, transcending experience like the Film Academy seems to make you want to believe. But I think it's a good movie. I think there's definitely things about it that are good, that represent good filmmaking, that represent good writing. But let's go over those positives and negatives because I have quite a few of both of them. For my positives, for my positives of Spotlight, I seem to want to talk fast today. For my positives of Spotlight, I thought Mark Ruffalo, Stanley Tucci, and Liev Schreiber were probably the three that really gave great performances in this movie, especially Mark Ruffalo. I really believed that they became these characters. I wasn't just watching actors on a screen. Mark Ruffalo really became that journalist. Stanley Tucci really became that lawyer, and Liev Schreiber really became his journalist. I just really could believe that there was characters that were out in the world that were like these journalists. I felt like I was kind of watching the real thing just because of how real these actors and actresses, in this case, if you include Rachel McAdams too, just how believable they made all these performances. There's also a lot of powerful scenes involving the scandal victims. You really do get the sense that these victims felt really traumatized over all these years of all these horrible things that these priests and these people have done to them. So, as far as making those scenes feel powerful, making these victims feel traumatized, I think Spotlight did a great job as far as just really making us feel like we got like not really exposed to these, victim cases, but that we can really understand just how traumatized these people are and how they're still kind of traumatized to this day. Another positive I had about the movie was it showed just how tight-lipped the church was about all this, how they were hiding files, how they were hiding stories, how they were moving priests around to kind of make it people easily forgive for what they did and stuff. And it really does kind of show just how far they went to make sure that the Boston Globe or another newspaper or another people or even like an online blogger even that even they didn't find out about all this. So just what they had to do and what these journalists had to do to actually find these files to make this story appear in their paper is really quite incredible, just because it's incredible on both sides and how far they had to dig for it and how far the church had to hide it to make sure nobody could find it. Another huge positive for this movie is it shows just how long it can take for all your sources to line up to make these stories in the Boston Globe work. And you would never expect that because, the Boston Globe's publishing stuff all the time. There's newspapers out there that post stuff every day. They have a paper ready to go every day. So it just kind of shows that, as quickly as these papers get made, there's a lot more to them than what you would think. And, these poor journalists, they barely have a personal life just because it takes so much time and effort and sources backing you up on things just to get these stories published into these papers. For some negatives of Spotlight, I thought there was kind of some forced character mannerisms. Besides Mark Ruffalo, Stanley Tucci, and Liev Schreiber, the three that I really was impressed by in the movie, there was a lot of forced character mannerisms that feel like they were in there just to further proof the gay person was the gay person, or the defensive priest was the defensive priest, or the strict lawyer was the strict lawyer. There was just some forced character mannerisms that feels so forced, and by the time they're lined up with the really good performances, they feel out of place, and you almost kind of wish that everybody involved could have been an A-list cast member of some kind, because when they're not an A-list cast member, they feel out of place here. Another negative I have about the movie is it's very slow paced. It moves at a snail pace. Really would have wished that they could have told the story at a quicker pace. I understand they were trying to go for the slow burn effect, but that slow burn effect can only work if the payoff is just absolutely extraordinary. And well, Spotlight didn't quite do that for me. There's also a forced 9/11 moment in this movie, and I won't go into details because it is kind of right in between when all the big stuff in the story is happening, but it does feel forced. I feel like they threw it in there just to get an Oscar nomination. Even look at Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. That's a rotten rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and somehow that got nominated, basically just because of its 9/11 theme. I felt like they did it here just to force their nomination into the Academy Awards. That's really what it felt like to me. This is also a very visually dull movie. A lot of the time in Spotlight, it either spends in like a dark coffee shop where you don't really get to see a lot, or it spends a lot of time at the Boston Globe office or in these very poorly lit homes. Just not a very visually great film to look at. And then my other negative with Spotlight is there really isn't a lot of replay value. I really can't see myself or anybody else wanting to watch this movie more than once. I really anything you'll feel with this movie, you're going to feel the first time, and there's just really no point in seeing it a second time. So, Spotlight, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. It's a good movie. It has its moments. The performances are great. There's powerful scenes. Um, I liked how it showed just how difficult it is to get all your sources to line up and approve things for certain articles. But some of the character mannerisms, the slow pacing, the 9/11 element, the visual dullness of the movie, and the fact that it really doesn't have much replay value, but ultimately it's going to wear the film down. So 8 out of 10, good movie, not a great movie. I personally would have preferred another film got nominated for the Oscars instead.